This podcast episode contains discussions about suicide, which may be distressing or triggering for some listeners. I understand that conversations about mental health and suicide can evoke strong emotions and personal experiences. If you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of self-harm or suicide, I urge you to seek support from a trusted friend, family member, or mental health professional. Additionally, if you are in the United States, you can contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK for free and confidential support 24/7. Please prioritize your well-being while listening to this episode, and feel free to pause or skip ahead if you need to take a break. Your mental health and safety is important. Welcome back, or if it's your first time, I'm glad to have you here. I'm Matt Fendora, and you're tuned in to the Choose to Live, Love, and Grow podcast, where we journey together toward becoming the best version of ourselves. Using mind, body, heart, and spirit as the anchors of our podcast, join me as we set sail into the depths of self-discovery, unraveling the interconnected layers that shape our growth. If you resonate with today's conversation, consider subscribing to the podcast. Your support means the world to us and ensures you never miss an empowering episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of Choose to Live, Love, and Grow, your go-to destination for personal growth and empowerment. Whether you are a loyal listener or a newcomer, I'm grateful for your presence. Today, we have the opportunity to chat with Gina Cavalier. Gina Cavalier is an author, artist, filmmaker, and media executive, and founder of the Liberated Healer. Gina is at the crossroads of wellness and media entertainment. She is building a brand that focuses on homeopathic healing and provides specific guidance to those dealing with suicidal thoughts. She offers support and tools through her books, programs, content, events, mobile and web apps, and corporate and group education. Her team is currently filming a docu-series about worldwide suicidal ideation, exploring the depth to open the conversation to bring levity to the subject so others can share, so we can save lives. Gina is a media veteran, former entertainment studio executive, and technology enthusiast. She has contributed to over 300 film and TV titles such as Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts, and Where to Find Them franchises. Gina began her speaking career at Warner Brothers Studio, where she established a business resource group that organized insightful events for over 600 attendees. These events addressed relevant topics including work-life balance, inclusion, and well-being. Some of Gina's proudest accomplishments include securing 2 publishing deals related to her teachings and programs. She wrote her first book, Surviving Suicidal Ideation, From Therapy to Spirituality and the Lived Experience, along with her second book coming out later this year titled Planet Walking, a handbook for the living, a 6-week energy program to manifest the life you desire with guidance on healing suicidal ideation. What makes Gina's heart sing? Helping with the worldwide suicide epidemic through her work. Without further ado, here's Gina Cavalier. How are you doing today, Gina?
Oh, hi, Matt. Thank you. And thank you for having me.
This is such a sensitive topic, but it's such a necessary one. And so I don't want to say I'm excited to get into it, but it's one of those things where you just have to have that conversation. But before we dive into that subject, I'd want to kind of get to know you a little bit more. So what got you into the media entertainment business to start?
Well, it's kind of detailed in my book because surviving suicidal ideation, because a lot of my suicidal tendencies came from an abusive childhood. And in that abusive childhood, there's also a lot of neglect where I was left alone for a really long time with probably 8 different channels of television in the 70s and listening to music. So they actually became my teachers. I learned how to read when I was 2 years old through listening to pulling out lyrics of music and things like that. So I feel like that television informed me as a child about, how people lived and parents and dynamics and things like that. I didn't realize until I was a little older that, oh, that's television, that's not real life. And I think that that's what media does for us. And for example, my friend worked on the Queen's Gambit, a recent television show. And that story brought people really into playing chess again, so much so that a 100-year-old company that was completely going out of business, almost on the verge of bankruptcy, kind of got completely revitalized that sells chessboard. So it's just a small token of what media can really do. And I just embrace it with all my heart. And I love telling stories as well.
So then, how are you able to connect the media entertainment aspect of things with wellness? Because that is one of the things that you enjoy talking about, correct?
Correct. Well, people are very visual, number one. They say that 90% of people are visual learners. And from the beginning of time, we have used story to take us to constantly in the lives of humans. We use story to engage, we use story to create. To me, whatever drives your heart is actually the healing thing that is inside of you that you need to pursue. So if you need to be a creative, if you need to be a writer, if you need to sing a song, that's something that your soul wants to emanate, to tell its story, to tell its vibration. And it's really important. Story is just, I can't even, I lose the words because it's just so important to communicate for some people to actually do the work, and then some people to actually hear it.
What would you say was your favorite project you worked on?
I guess I would say Fantastic Beasts, and just because it was the one I learned the most on,
Mm.
because it's challenging. And I worked on it for the longest time of my career. And I was in integrated marketing. So I worked with J.K. Rowling's team, and I had to integrate all the content through all the different divisions at Warner Brothers. So that would be like the studio side, the DVD, the games, and make sure that they were representing the characters in the right way, and making sure that the publicity photos that were coming out were approved and all kinds of different things. But working inside of a corporate structure, and then also working with a creative at that level, and then also to make sure that you handle all these mass amounts of different businesses at one time and have to learn how all the businesses work. Oh, it was just extremely challenging work. But rewarding. I learned so much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Did you read the books before the movies came out?
Well, I actually was one of like two people on the entire lot that had the scripts, and I had them locked under my desk. So I had anybody who read a script, they weren't able to take it. Not like we weren't, the vendors didn't get them, nobody got them. So except for the actors, of course, and things like that. But for studio work, they had to come and read it in my office. And I was the first. It was really interesting being a writer. I'm written scripts, and to see a first draft, and then to see the changes, and to see how they really procure a feature film to go into production. It was really, to see it at that level was really amazing.
So diving into the topic, this is not an easy conversation to have, but you've written books on it and you talk about this all the time. So could you just start off with, what is it like talking about it and sharing your experiences?
It's really interesting because I'm like, you're right. I talk about it every single day now at this point. And also at night, there's a couple different Facebook groups I belong to. One has 1.4 million members who are seeking help because they're suicidal. And I even looked into some of the biggest groups on Facebook. The only other biggest groups on Facebook, for the most part, are religious organizations. So not even superheroes on Facebook have an account that big. So when you're looking at marketing, for example, or looking at numbers, or looking at, like, this is a great need. And what I do, probably when I'm winding down for the night, I actually go on there and I at least try to connect with one person who's suffering and to try to help them. Sometimes I'm on there for 10 minutes, sometimes I'm on there for hours. Literally taking people down through it's going to be okay, and why don't you try some grounding, why don't you put some music on. People I have don't even know what they look like. I only know the name that they're given on the screen. So it is a really incredibly important thing, and it touches every single person worldwide in some way or another. The thing is that we have to bring levity towards it, because it's unbalanced. For example, in YouTube, you can't say the word suicide, but you can say kill and murder, and you can say all kinds of other things, right? So how are we supposed to heal and not feel stigmatized when it's so labeled, so bad to have those thoughts? back in the 50s, I wasn't here, but there was this stigma about being an alcoholic, and AA came in and it was super secret and anonymous, and it really helped people to be able to share and to come up, have a program and to say, okay, this is something in my life I want to change, and I want to transform myself. And it works for millions of people. And it's because, can you imagine if they never created that? But now it's like the norm. We understand what AA is, and we accept alcoholics and we let them go on their journey. Well, we need to do the same thing for people who have suicidal ideation. It's a different situation. It takes a different set of skill sets. For the most part, people who are suicidal are not suicidal all the time. It might be something that only happens once a year for somebody, when they have a chaotic fall, or they lose their job, or they're going through a divorce, right? And they just can't take it anymore. And so they can get to the point where they can have a suicidal thought. A lot of people I've talked to, this is not a like say depression might be consistently present without medication, or without this and that, or bipolar disorder, or different things like that, that maybe are anxiety that's in their life on a constant basis. The majority of the people I've talked to, this is just something that life gets too hard right now. And it's proven to me that I'm unworthy of love. I don't belong here. And a lot of times it's an identity inside within themselves that they've created. Is a part of this ego balance that needs to die off. And what I mean by that is, for example, one of my most suicidal times is when I went through my first divorce with my husband. And he was in a band called Flogging Molly, and they were hugely successful, and he was basically a rock star. And I helped him get there, and I built up this whole life and a facade of being this person's wife. And then when we got divorced, losing that identity of being his wife, I wanted to die. I couldn't see myself not being his wife. I couldn't see myself not having that title. And I worked hard for it, and I wanted to be a part of that. I didn't want to lose that part of my life, but it was happening. I had no control over it. And so having no control, the only thing I did have control over was possibly saying, but you know what I have control over? I could choose to leave this world. And, at times I almost did. And, but now, as I've healed and as I look back on it, I realized it was that identity in me that needed to die. And so now when I help people and we talk about this, and I ask them that, is that something that it's just a part of your identity and your ego, not the physical body, not this thing, right? It's that thing, it's the ego. So let's work on how can we get to a life releasing that, what you can't control, and getting back into present time and getting here now, realizing that this body is the most beautiful thing, that your mind, body, all these things that you have going on for you is just truly wonderful. They're an efficient living machine that is only here to help you to have experiences, and that you don't want to miss so many things about life. And that's sort of where I start.
So that's a very common thing, I feel like, when it comes to the military, because I just had this conversation. This episode that just came out this past Monday was when we transition out, especially if your intention was to stay in for a full 20 years and you get out early for whatever reason, it's just this huge loss of identity. And you have to refine your purpose. So what can someone do in a situation where they feel like that identity is lost, and like you said, we want to separate the identity from ourselves? How can we do that? How can we separate that identity but still be okay and accept and go through that emotional turmoil, because we have to, and but still transition to being okay and being healthy on the other end?
Well, life is a journey. There's not a single person that doesn't deal with obstacles and conflict. We need to start teaching how to deal with these things, even in schools. It needs to be a part of like programming and education and everywhere, because how we deal with conflict is going to affect our life all around us, right? Do we emotionally respond right away, or do we give it breathing room? Do we, all this different stuff is how we take in the information, how we process it, right? So really looking at, I like to use analogies of mountains, right? Because that's what life is, just a series of bunch of mountains, right? And when you are stuck, for example, I don't know what to do next. Who am I? First, you have to get in your body and recognize that, again, this body is just this beautiful thing that is magic in itself, and see and feel that magic. And realize that you do have so much more that you can contribute, and you need to like form your own healing path that only you will know 100%. So you can invite people to help you on your healing path, like a therapist or your family or friends or different healing modalities. But you have to put yourself in charge of your own healing. And that's why I had the company, The Liberated Healer. It's not about me being a liberated healer. It's about everybody taking the liberation and saying, I'm healing myself. So I only know what resonates for me, and recognizing that you are going to build this pathway up the mountain. You don't want to be stuck up against a mountain, stuck looking up at the mountain with no way to go. You want to be able to open up the pathways and go, oh, I can turn left. Oh, I didn't like that. I want to go back to the right. You want to like walk up the mountain without a boulder on your back, slinging it hard. You want to put an axe in your hand. You want to take accountability. You want to just go, I'm committing to myself to get up this mountain any way I can. And people will rally around you. You know, it feels amazing actually once you put it into your own hands like that and say, I know I have things I have to work on, whatever they are, but I'm going to take charge of it and get up that hill as best I can. And please support me. And that's what we need to do now, is create more programs, more books, more content, more movies to support people who are seeking this information. You know, there's all this money being put towards content and apps and everything else that you can imagine, fashion, whatever, all this billions of dollars going, but we're barely putting any money towards the content to help people who are suicidal or depression or struggling in ways that are positive. So that are supportive. We just need to, as a collective, start to say, what do we choose to do with our funding as a government, as a brand, as a community? We need to come together and just say, no, we need to switch the gears, get back to being a community and putting programs into place to help people. Because once they choose this themselves, once they choose to go up that mountain, they need support.
So how do we have that uncomfortable conversation as, let's say, the outside, let's say there's somebody who is going through some difficult times. How do we support that person and have that uncomfortable conversation?
Well, I would say and since I do this almost every day, I say the first thing I do is I automatically bring levity towards it, and I don't freak out. So don't get all like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, and start to call a bunch of people and start to get panicky and things like that. You have to take it seriously, but not panic, and try to stay in a neutral position, and then just gently ask questions and just say, hey, okay, I know, oh, you're going through that. There's a new study out that I haven't read fully, but they're saying that 8 minutes is sort of what you need to transition from. We broke it down in the book Surviving Suicidal Ideation, who I co-authored with a trauma-informed therapist, Dr. Amelia Kelly, by the way. So they're saying that, and we have 5 stages of suicidal ideation, and the 5th stage is actually action and planning. So it's kind of almost like, where kind of are they? Just take a mental, try to really see where they are. And if they're just, a lot of times when I talk to people, most of them are just like, it's all coming against something for the day. Like something was the last thing they could take today, right? And so just giving them my ear and just saying, okay, have you tried? I would say, should I call somebody, or do you just want to chat? And a lot of times they'll be like, I just want to talk to somebody. Okay, just start to ask questions. Do you like to, what would make you feel better right now? Can you go on a walk? Can you put on some music? And then this one lady the other day, she's like, well, okay. And I got her to put on salsa music. And I go, why don't you like start dancing and get back into your body? She goes, yeah, I don't feel like I'm in my body. Because what happens is when you become completely ungrounded, And we have 50 trillion cells in our body, right? And every one of these cells has a little bit of energy in it. And this is quantum physics. This isn't, woo-woo stuff. And if all of our mind, body, and spirit is all thinking negative, right? All those cells are just sort of like succumbing to this like fatigue and sadness energy, right? And what happens is you start to really feel disconnected. And that disconnection is an important thing. And ask them, do you feel disconnected? Do you feel numb? The numbness, when somebody is suicidal, they will feel numb from their spirit or soul or anything around them. If they don't believe in that, that's fine. But they will feel numb. They won't feel anything. They won't be able to feel anything. That's why people cut themselves, because they want to feel something. That's why they do drastic things, because it's like, I don't feel anything anymore. Like everything's numb. So you have to get back in the body. You have to start feeling the body again, because if you can feel your body, it's going to save you. If you can feel your own heart again beating, it's going to save you. So it's really calmly asking them questions, being there for them. And then if it is a 911 situation, calling 911 if you have to. But there are programs that are being developed. There's a text program that I really like, especially for teenagers that they don't want to speak to someone on the phone. It's 417. I think, don't quote me, look it up. But, things like that are really helpful programs for teens who are like, I'm not feeling it today. Things like that. But yeah, and there's a ton of resources in our book and online, of course, with more information.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure the number 741-741.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. I had it backwards, which I am dyslexic. See, as proof.
Yep. So 741-741 is the number, if you're listening, to text that. And you can text instead of just talking to somebody, because, a lot of people have gone into that. I just want to text. I don't want to talk to somebody kind of mode. And, and that's okay in this instance. So there's help and support for those individuals as well.
Yep.
So let's say that someone is in the moment. And so we're not necessarily on the outside. We're not that supporting person, but we're the person that's in the moment. What would you recommend they do? You've kind of talked about it already, but what would you recommend that they do if they have these ideations? What should they do?
This is like a really difficult one. You have to find what works for you, but you have to get up and move your body. You have to walk around. You have to maybe take a bath. You have to get a massage. You have to turn music on. You have to call your friends. You have to find any way to get back into yourself, to release the meditation, and get anywhere that you can to be safe. Get around people. Don't isolate yourself. Isolation is the number one thing that will just continue to make it worse. And you find that person that you really can trust, and ask them to be an advocate for you. Watch videos of your animals or your children or whoever you love, your parents or your mother, your father, your grandfather. Watch a video of them. If you have on again, off again suicidal ideation, ask them to do a video for you that you can play back at any time. Put that on your favorites list. Especially if people have children. Ask, hey, will you do a little video for dad? You don't tell them what it's for. Do a little video for daddy, so anytime I miss you, that I can see it. And then you have that. I'm getting chills all over my body saying that this is what people need to hear. Because in that moment, when you just don't want to be here anymore and everything feels so empty, right? Or you're in debt, I mean, a lot of people lose their life over debt, over money that can be replaced, and it is because it's a stigma, you feel lost because we've been programmed to talk negatively about ourselves, whether it's, if you're bankrupt, like who created that? People that don't care about you, that doesn't mean you are a bad person or you don't have a soul or you don't have value anymore. And we need to get rid of all those stigmatized things and people say, no, you have value to stay here. Just the fact that you have this beating heart right now means that you are meant to be here. That heart is so beautiful and valuable. Stay here, but find the videos, have them recorded, write a letter to yourself. Say, self, you're going through shit today. I'm so sorry. Life can be really difficult, but you're going to get through this. This is just another mountain that you're going to climb. and find something healing that works for you. And like, right, I like, I heard some kid told me that he has a letter that he keeps in his pocket at all times, anytime he needs it to himself. And it really helped him because he had a 24/7 thing that he could go to and say, no, you have value. You're not a failure. You're worthy. Please stay here. So create this kit for yourself. And that's what I didn't know when I was going through it. I would just lay in bed in these dark moments, not put on any music, stare at a tree, and envision ending my life. And I didn't have any videos of anybody. I didn't have a letter to myself. I didn't have any meditation music, and like through this whole journey, I have a little iHome speaker and it's on 24/7. So I put ocean on at night and then immediately I switch it to meditative music and I keep it low hum on the house all the time. And then when I really feel like I want to dance, I'll put on some dance music or something fun, right? But because I have PTSD and anxiety from my past abuses and going through all this different stuff, I'm going to be triggered during the day and I don't even know when or why sometimes, right? That low hum really helps me keep me like, I won't even notice that I'm just sort of like, oh, I'll zend out. And I've realized that helps me. So I take that HomePod everywhere I go, every trip I go, I plug it right in and I keep it on a low hum and it just keeps me balanced and grounded. But that's this thing is that helps me, but have to you have to take your own accountability and say, I'm worthy. What works for me?
So we kind of talked about identity loss being one of the things that kind of leads to those thoughts. What else can lead to those thoughts?
Well, the thing is that the death, like our youth is doing it more and more. So I'm hearing really tragic stories. And again, they're not being really taught to deal with conflict or obstacles. So anytime anything comes up, they think it's the end of their life at a very young age, like they lose their girlfriend or boyfriend. And it's because they have been extremely, from what I can tell, maybe in some cases, helicopter parented where they weren't able to deal with conflict. Their parents did it for them all the time. And so now when it comes in, they don't know how to deal with it. And they think it's the end of the world. And so it's kind of like making sure that we teach the youth. That's why I think we need to have these conflict resolution classes in high schools and in middle schools. So you sit across from each other and say, hey, you said something you don't like, you said something you don't like. How are you guys going to work it out? And, not over text, like through vocal expression and looking in each other's eyes and things like that, and connecting one-on-one with the heart. That's where we need to get back to. But the documentary that I'm doing, it's a six-part docu-series. And what we're doing is we're looking at, there's globally different things depending on where you live. Like, for example, Japan is highly stigmatized against debt, or if you lose your job. Like if you lose a job in a given industry, you might not get a job in that industry ever again. You're blacklisted. And they could have discriminated against you. It was something you didn't even do. And now you can't get a job and feed your family. So in Japan, it's greatly about how you look in the community in debt. I'd say in America, it's so wide, but a lot of us are losing family, the loneliness. So many people are lonely. If you can imagine the elder people that are left behind and placed into homes that don't have any family that even come visit them, or people that have been in some sort of an accident, lives in a convalescent home and people don't come and visit them. Extremely lonely. People that never had kids, that's why pets are so great, to lift spirits for people. But we've lost our community, period. We spend too much time on our phones and social media and the things that disconnect us further. And yeah, there's funny videos online on there and stuff like that that can make you giggle. But the 10%, but the 90% of it is shenanigans, is stuff that isn't really enriching your life. I see a world in the future where people will start to reject social media in a way, because we're going to really know. And it's when we bring out all this content that, we're going to still have shows and TV shows and stories and podcasts and things like that. But we're going to have to reduce the shenanigans stuff, because we're going to realize it's not enriching our lives as much. We have to find ways to build better connection to our tribe. And that's why we need these programs, almost like a Suicidal Ideation Anonymous idea I had, which is like a place that people can go into Zoom calls once a day or twice a day all over the country and just hear people's stories so they know people are not alone. And that's why I share my story, because I've actually healed it. I healed it 100%. And why I can say that is I still go through so much chaos and trauma. I mean, I'm actually getting kicked out of my house right now because there was mold, and the landlord kind of blamed me for something that I had nothing to do with, and she gave me a 30-day notice. So all of a sudden, I have nowhere to live. I have 2 dogs in LA, and I'm, and I donate all my time, so I don't have this high value amount of money in my income. So I'm put in a precarious situation. Normally, I would have maybe fallen into a suicidal thought over that. Like, this is proof I'm not worthy. I have this thing to deal with. It keeps happening to me. Why does it keep happening to me? I've reprogrammed that. I don't let myself talk to myself like that anymore. I just love myself too much. And, I just learned how to deal with obstacles as they come. And so I'm sorry I segued a little bit, but it just felt like a natural segue. But again, loneliness is such, and then we have the gender complications, like the veteran things is just such a big deal. And I think you might probably talked about this. The Pentagon came out with a report that said that they admitted for the first time ever that they lose soldiers more through suicide than they do in combat. And we all knew that, but it was the first time the Pentagon actually, and think about that. And then that was a news report, and then it just died. I mean, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that happening? And why don't we have more programs? So we need advocates and conversations like this, because as we intellectualize what's happening, we can fix it. And that's how my brain worked. That's why I had a podcast as well. I love learning, right? And that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. And so when I actually started to intellectualize suicidal ideation, I was like, this is interesting. This is why my mind would go there. Why is that? Why is that happening? And then I would find a way to say, no, Gina, you love yourself too much. I love myself as much as anything and anyone else that I used to love, which I didn't do before. If you love yourself, you don't want to hurt yourself. You don't even want to stub your toe, let alone go all the way to the end of ending your life. You really you protect yourself. So finding these pathways to find out how to love yourself again. And the reality is then you really start to live again, because the right people get attracted to you. The right jobs get attracted to you. The right projects get attracted to you. That you start to vibrate in a different way that's inviting to have all new energies participate in your life. And I think sometimes when you're really depressed, you don't realize that you're separating yourself. You're giving off the vibe, don't talk to me. Say you're lonely, and you're curing that loneliness even more, because you're the one going into the dark. You're the one that's not calling people. You're the one, but then you really think it's society creating this loneliness for you. But in reality, you're a participant. So that's why it goes back to taking accountability and saying, you know what? I got more power than I knew. This awesome thing, whichever package it comes in, is pretty cool. This system is pretty neat. If when I do meditations, I go through sometimes all of our organs, and when I break them down, and you're like, oh my God, I forgot. They're constantly working for me. Oh, we have this and this and this, and wow, they're so magical and beautiful. They really do so much for us. Like this whole system and our spine, and when you get back into your body and go, wow, this is pretty cool. And this is sort of what I do for teenagers, because they love that stuff. They're like, yeah, I'm cool.
So one of the common themes that we've kind of talked about of getting through the difficult times is we talk about our worth and reminding ourselves that we're worthy. I find that it can be very difficult to find those moments if we're not actively looking at it. For example, men a lot of times will equate their worth to their achievements and their accolades. So how can somebody go about finding their own worth and reminding themselves that they are worthy?
This is deep work. but we're all made for it. So you kind of have to know where your wounding is. You have to admit to everything. And I think that's sort of like going back to maybe the AA, like, or whatever, but you have to go back to your wounding and really take a look at it, even if you do it just by yourself. And that's why we created the book, because people that don't want to tell anybody or don't want to even get a doctor, can go get surviving suicidal ideation, and they can start looking at their stuff. And what I mean by their wounding is we all have different triggers, right? Oh gosh, when people say I look tired, they're telling me I'm not pretty enough, and my dad always told me I was ugly, or whatever it is. You have to know where your triggers are. You have to know where your wounding is. So I knew exactly where my wounding was. My dad was very abusive, my whole childhood. So it was physical abuse. So I didn't have the sense of safety. And when a child doesn't have a sense of safety, they will go and fight or flight, and they have to do this. So when you're a child and you create the ways to survive as a child, when you're in an abusive household, you create ways to survive through that, right? But what happens is you carry that through your teens all the way to your adulthood. And now those same things that you used to use to survive as a child don't work as an adult. What they do is they re-traumatize you, because now you're trying to protect yourself, but you're really kicking out good people or creating conflict that doesn't really need to be there, because you have this thing. So finding out where your wounding is and unpacking it even lightly, and even making a list, journaling, writing is so important, even if you hate it. And you don't have to write a book. You could do scribbles, but it's like, where is your wounding? Where's your trigger? Like, everybody has a trigger. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or whatever your title is, right? You could be really wealthy, but your parents just like throw you in boarding school and never gave you any love, and so they're triggered constantly because they feel we're unworthy of love. Like, I don't deserve it, or whatever. So it's finding where your triggers are. It's also, we need to stop comparing ourselves to other people and other situations. Comparative energy, jealous energy, all that stuff. And as that comes up, it's almost like a practice, and we all have it, right? But what happens is, if we can recognize when it comes up and say, oh, that's not good for me, drop it. It's like a practice, dropping it. And we're all judgmental at a certain point too. It's a part of our human nature. But through our modernization, we become even more judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
We used to just judge people like from afar, like in our homes. But now that we have all this media, we're constantly judging. And it could be as small as like, I don't like that haircut, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't realize that we're constantly judging every image that we see. What happens is that judgmental energy comes back onto us, and then we have to carry it. And so it's like recognizing the thoughts that you have, and are these productive thoughts, and it's a practice, and go, oh no, it's not, that's not actually helping me. Oh, let's turn off that video, or yeah, let's not worry about that. What do I want to get done today? What is my, focusing on the things that make you better. And part of this uncovering of these wounds and the triggers, and again, finding solutions for them. So mine is, the anxiety, and I found the speaker thing works for me. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's like, what's my trigger? What's my wound? How can I slowly work to heal that when it happens? And that's sort of what I recommend.
How can the audience recognize that somebody needs help?
So I sold my home and gave away my money. I mean, because I thought, well, I'm not going to leave this planet with like all this equity. I'm going to give it to people. I'm going to be a martyr or whatever. And I did. I gave away most of my money, and that should have signaled some people. I was paying off lawyer bills, vet bills. I was taking people on vacations. I had a big house in Hollywood Hills that I rented, and I was having parties. I was having bands play. Like, I was going through my money because I was planning on, when it was gone, I was just going to leave. So giving away things, doing things like that don't seem to make sense. People that really are isolating, and saying, no, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. You know, just showing up for somebody and knocking on the door, bringing in a bag of bagels or something like that, and saying, "Hey, look, can I sit down and see you?" And it doesn't have to be a super aggressive thing, but to do that. And I just think that the isolation is one of the biggest ones. And it goes back to that loneliness, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a separation, and they're trying to convince themselves that they're right, that they're not worthy, for example. So anytime you come back in, then it creates this conflict, like, okay, I guess I am a little worthy. You know what I mean? Because what happens is suicidal ideation can become a friend. It can become something that a secret only you have. Right. And so what I mean by that, and that's going another level deep. But that's really interesting, because it's something that you can control and you can own, that nobody knows that you have. And that's kind of dangerous. So unpacking that is really difficult. Nobody would have ever known I was suicidal. I act and spoke the same way I do now. I was in meetings, and I love people and I love stuff, So, but when I went home and I was dealing with this identity and who I was, I didn't feel connected to my work. I didn't feel connected to people. I felt like people were always taking advantage of me. The problem that was happening is that I was extremely, I still had those old wounds, and I would let people into my life that were just as wounded as me. So then we would just wound each other over and over again. And so I felt like I was unworthy of love, because why do I keep calling in all this toxic love? But in reality, I was just wounded, and this person was wounded, and we were just like in a wound fest. So if I wanted a different life, if I wanted a different experience, I had to go heal myself. And now I can just say that the people that do come in my life, I can recognize, like, if they're going to be healthy for me. And the people that aren't going to be healthy with me, I let them go with love. I would try to not a judgment, but I can't go back that way anymore. But that's when you start to love yourself. As a person who's wounded, they don't understand that. And a person who's already stable, and they're like, I don't understand suicidal ideation or this and that. Or why do you keep getting all these horrible boyfriends? It was like, because that is what I knew. That is what felt comfortable to me. My first husband was not an abuser, but he was just as much an alcoholic as my father. So I married what I knew, not realizing that that's not what I needed. But I didn't love myself. I didn't care what I needed. I wanted love. And that love came in the package of alcohol abuse and all the other stuff. But when you get more healed, then you can say, oh, you can recognize that more and take care of yourself and bring in the right energy, so you don't have to go through all that chaos all the time.
So earlier you mentioned that you have your 6-part docu-series. Do you have a timetable on when that comes out and where people can watch that?
No, but we are raising funds for it right now, and we have a fiscal non-sponsor, Creative Visions Foundation, and I do have a link to, and we're going to probably start. We'll have a good for you link, which is where people can get a taxable donation from a 501c3. So we are connected to them. So we're doing our first fundraising in September in Malibu, and we're trying to raise the funds to at least get the first episode done. And we're going to talk about, like I said, going about geography, about all the different, because we've got, everybody's different. UK, USA, Brazil, Russia's really big numbers. Ukraine, like really big numbers for suicides there. And kind of we want to intellectualize it, so we take that stigma off. And then we want to look at even mass shooters, because mass shooters are really suicidal before they become homicidal. So that's another reason why it's 911 that we figure this out, because they have to be suicidal to go down that road. They have to be suicidal. I mean, nobody wants to give them any airtime, and I understand that. But just as we had to figure out what the temperament was of a serial killer when the FBI came up with their whole program, we have to understand why they're suicidal first. Then they cross over to homicidal. That's huge. Not everybody does that, but they know when they're going to commit that. I feel like they know that they're probably going to die. So they're suicidal. So there's a whole section on Why does that happen? And, we're going to look at the history. And the thing is that 200 years ago, people were only suicidal for certain reasons. And it was, you were a POW, or, you had a really bad illness, or maybe you lost the love of your life through an accidental gun slinging shooting, you know what I mean, or whatever. As we become more modern, more medicated, and richer, and more technology, we're extremely suicidal. So we have to look at that. That's the big question. Why? And what can we do to go backwards now? Because all living things, number one nature is to want to live. So somehow that's been reprogrammed or changed. And now the only way we're going to turn that around is to figure out what changed. And so we can go back the other way.
Mhm. So I want to change things up just for a minute here because we've been talking so much of the being so low and going through all of that. So for you, what would you say is your best moment?
Talking to people every day about something I'm really passionate about, connecting. I mean, I deeply connect with people. Like I get tears just thinking about it, because I want them to know they don't have to live their whole life with suicidal ideation. When you learn that you don't have to, you're like, really? I can get rid of this, because you feel like it's a part of you, like your eye
Mhm.
color or your height. No, I'm here to tell you there's a way to get the way to live a whole different life, that you don't have to have this hanging on you in the background anymore. And I'm here to say that I've actually completely healed it. I can get thrown under a pile of rocks and I'll still sit there and go, okay, life is crazy, hello. I don't go into those dark rabbit holes anymore. I love talking to the people. I love helping them through it and giving them my experience. And I appreciate the people listening and caring and sending me so much love. And I'm just so grateful. I just feel I have so much love around me now, but I'm ready to recognize it. I had love before, but I couldn't feel it or see it. But that's going to be when you heal, you're going to be able to see how beautiful this planet is, how much, you get to see the love in people, you get to feel them giving to you, and then you get to give back. And it's like, it's what we're here for.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So now that we're getting near the end of the podcast, I have three final questions I ask all guests, and these are over the topics of what this podcast is, which is live, love, and grow. So the first question I have is, what advice can you share about how to create a life that leaves a positive impact on the world?
Everybody has something that makes them tick and smile and sing. It's your job to find out what that is. And it could be literally singing. It doesn't matter. You don't have to go through a giant leap. You don't have to become a big famous person to not be worthy. You can just be singing in your bathroom if that makes you happy. It's living the life, finding what makes you happy. And the word is excitement. I always use the word excitement. Does this excite me? Because you have to like learn how to get connected with your own intuition and your own system. What the question is does that make me excited today? If the answer is yes, go for it. So moving through that and getting to whatever makes you excited, and recognize that whatever that is, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be quantum physics, it could be accounting, it doesn't have to be singing, but whatever makes you the most excited, step into that on a daily basis as much as possible. And eventually you'll get there to doing more of the life that you prefer to live.
I love that. The second question I have is, what are some practical ways people can cultivate self-love?
Journaling and writing down the affirmations, if that help, there's a whole energy between taking a pen and intentionally writing something. That's why you see so many people talk about journaling. It's not just like willy-nilly. It actually is an energy of taking that pen and cultivating the words and letting the ink flow. It's like actually like it just helps transforms energy, if I can explain that, with your mind, body, and spirit. But just absolutely the way you speak to yourself. And if you are speaking to yourself negatively, recognize that that is not who your soul is and who you are as an individual. Recognize that is your brain playing a program in a way, and you can take that program and once it comes up, throw it away. Say, I'm not talking to myself that way today, and I demand it to myself now. I actually have almost like a second self. I'm like, no, you're not going to tell yourself you're that. You're nope. Mm-mm. Because that you let that play, and I'm stupid, I'm ugly, I'm whatever it is. You know what I mean? So taking that control back, say no. Okay, I messed up there. That was a dumb mistake. Ha ha ha. Move on. Yeah.
Mhm. And my final question is, what is one actionable tip someone can do today to grow 1% better?
Take a breath.
Mm.
Take a breath. Pausing, being patient. My abuse made me a very anxious person, and I felt like I needed to prove myself of my worthy. So I would be overproductive. I would never take the spaces in between. I would never give myself a moment to meditate or be quiet. I had to fill up all my space, and because that made me feel worthy. So I would, write a book, and then I would go to work 12 hours a day, and then I would clean the house, and then I would, you know, there was no space. And I felt like I was being, that made me like a good person or something like that. But I didn't create any space or quiet, and recognize that those quiet moments, especially when you're going through something scary or tumultuous or anything that, or you have to, maybe you are getting fired, maybe you are getting a divorce. These are hard things. They
Mhm.
are terrible. They suck. It is terrible. But recognizing that you need to have be quiet and let that so you can hear your own self, your own heartbeat. You can't do that if you're running 20 miles an hour.
Mhm. I love those answers. Uh, so, how can the audience connect with you, Gina?
Oh my gosh. Okay. GinaCavalier.com. I know I have a few different things, and because I have all my artwork up there, I do channel art healing. I actually draw people's souls and things like that. That's sort of a new thing that I've been doing. The LiberatedHealer.com is where all of my programs and courses are, and videos. And then I do have Love and Media, where is the donation for my documentary, and a new Harry Potter like series I'm writing called Thomas Finding the Mystery School. We're negotiating with studios right now, and all of the above on Instagram or Facebook. And I do get back to people if they send me a question or a recommendation. I always get back to people. So if they have any questions or need any further recommendations, I'm here to help. And then my book, Surviving Suicidal Ideation, which I actually did the artwork for. So that's available on, all small and pop shops and Amazon and everywhere else you can find books.
Awesome. And how can the audience support you on your journey?
Just always, first love yourself, and then send me some love too. I love that. Send me some, just even energetic support is great. But if you do want to buy a book, even for yourself or someone else, they're only $20. And keep it around. I like to keep one in the car. I always run into somebody who wants it.
Mhm.
I actually have a new program where if you want to buy 5 books from me for $100, I will donate it on my journey to people that I run into, because I'm constantly giving them out, whether I meet a veteran or someone on the street. So that, it is, it's $100, but and it's on my website, but it really does help me because I can't give out all my books all the time. So that's a small way to really help me help other people, that is actually directly helping another person.
Well, I love that. And just thank you for coming on here, Gina. And I just want to acknowledge you for everything that you've gone through and the fact that you're going above and beyond by sharing your story. And I know that it's helping people, it's saving lives. And I just want to thank you for all the hard work that you're doing to help people.
Thank you, Matt. It means so much to me. Really, it's an honor.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Choose to Live, Love, and Grow podcast. I hope you took something away from this episode that you can implement today just like I did. I'd love to know what your biggest takeaway was from this episode. Let me know by sharing this episode in your Instagram stories and tag me at Matt Fendora. If you've enjoyed this episode, the ones before, and or you're looking forward to future episodes, please hit that subscribe or follow button. It helps me get this information to even more people. No matter what you choose to do, choose to live, love, and grow. Thank you, and have an outstanding day.